Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we're going to be setting up remappable inputs so that when we press down or either on the mouse key or on a controller, we get a pressed and released message coming through from Blueprint. Let's dive in and see how to do this. Now, we don't want to be doing this trace all the time. We only need to be doing it when we're getting ready to grab an object, and we don't want to automatically grab it when we go near it. So to actually grab onto something, we need to use a mouse input, some sort of input. Now, previously, we've done this with events in Blueprint, and we're going to do it again with events. We will see how to do this in C++ soon. But we are going to first do it with events. And what I want to do is set it up so that it could work with the keyboard, it could work with the mouse, or it could work with a controller. So to do this, we need input mapping, something that you see quite often in games. And the way we're going to do this is go to our settings cog. We're going to go to the project settings, scroll down to the engine, and then input. Here is where we set up things called action mappings and axis mappings. So what these two concepts are essentially the mappings between your controller analog sticks or buttons, or perhaps your mouse and your mouse buttons or your keyboard. The actions are discrete things. These are things that you press a button and it just happens as a press, as a release. And the axis mappings are things which are more continuous, such as when you move a mouse slightly, or you slightly tilt a controller, there's a degree to which you can tilt it. You can tilt it not at all, you can tilt it all the way, or anywhere in between. Those are axes. We're not going to deal with axes in this section because all we're dealing with is an action where we are trying to activate our grabber component. So the way we're going to do this is to unfold our action mapping. So you can see there's already a couple of action mappings here. There's a jump. There's a primary action. This has been set up for us because we're using the first person template, and there is a primary action already here. Now let's unfold that primary action, and you will see that there are two ways to trigger the primary action. You can use the left mouse button or the gamepad right trigger. Now, because I want to give you an idea of how we can set up our own action mapping, I'm actually going to hit the delete button next to the primary action, and we're going to create our own. So the first thing to do is click the add button next to action mapping. Then we need to give this action a name. In my case, I'm going to call this grab. And then we need to select a mapping. Now, you can either do this from the drop down, where you can select any of the mappings in here, or you can click on that little keyboard button, which allows you to capture whatever you're doing. So you click on it, it goes yellow, and then you click again, or you use whatever key. If I hit space, you can see it puts in spacebar. If I actually click with my left mouse button, you can see it adds a left mouse button option here. So a little mini challenge for you now is to go ahead and set up this action mapping, add the left mouse button. Maybe if you've got a controller, add in a controller button here too. Okay, welcome back. So I'm going to add in a new action mapping, use this add button. And then what we can do is I don't have my controller hooked up at the moment. So what you can do is click the drop down, and we can go to gamepad. And you can look for the gamepad right trigger, for example, and that will set it up so that when you pull the trigger on your gamepad, it's going to activate our grab action. So we've set up the action mapping. Now we need to actually make use of it. So we're going to go over to our content drawer. We're going to look for our BP player and open it up, because the BP player is the one that has the grabber component, and that's what we're eventually going to want to activate and make it grab something. And the way we can do this is by right-clicking in the Blueprint event graph and searching for grab. So now there is an input action events grab event, and this is linked up to whatever keys you have set up, and you can change that, and you can potentially create screens in the game which allow your players to change the input mappings as well. And what you got here is two events, a pressed event and a released event. So I'd like to challenge you to log on that particular action. So add a Blueprint log for when it's pressed add it for when it's released, and check that your mappings work. So go into the game, use the particular keys that you've mapped to our grab action, and see if your log messages get printed out. Pause the video and have a go. Okay, welcome back. So for pressed, we are going to do a print string, which is not going to say hello, it's going to say grabbed. And then we're going to have a released one as well. Again, a print string, which is going to say released, like so. Now let's go ahead into our dungeon level and hit play. And now if we hit the mouse button, it says grabbed. When I release it, it says released. And you can see that that is working as we would expect. Great stuff. Now we've seen how we can set up action mappings that are remappable and mappable to multiple inputs. I'll see you in the next lecture.